Welcome back. We're going to do another extreme budget video. These are going to be dinners. So I was in the grocery store the other day and I was walking around and I was, just thinking as I was doing my shopping, I'm always on the stand for a deal. And I started thinking, hey, I haven't done a couple of days worth of meals in a little bit. So I thought that I would do that. So I thought, all right, well, let me do a 5-day video because that's, easy to get it done, get it put together, get it out, get it, in a reasonable amount of time because I seem to talk too much. So I decided I was going to do a 5-dinner video. And what was my budget going to be? And I thought, about $250 a meal. And then I thought, nah, let's just make it $12 for 5 dinners. So I was like, all right, cool, that's it. So the first thing I did is I went right to the meat section. I started walking around, because you got to figure out what your protein's going to be so that you can build it. I came up with this bad boy. This is what's going to feed me over the next 5 days. So without further ado, let's get it, let's go. Let's see at those pots, come on. All right, this is my dinners for the next 5 days, okay? I'm gonna tell you what I got. I got the pork loin for $4.39. I got the onion for 33 cents. It was $1.06 a pound. I have 0.31 pounds. The potatoes. I wanted the 3-pound bag, but they didn't have any, so I was stuck with the 5-pound bag for $3.47. I have a loaf of bread over there for $1.06. I got a couple of things I want to do with that. I got the peas and carrots, 98 cents. I got the apple, that was $1.32 a pound. I had 0.40 pounds. That brought me to 53 cents. And the broccoli, oh darn, I forgot what it was. Oh, it was $2.30. I have 0.29 pounds for 67 cents. I think that's everything that I said. Let's get started. First thing I'm gonna do is, believe it or not, I'm gonna separate my peas and carrots into 5 equal piles. I may not use them equally, but I wanna make sure that it'll stretch for at least 5 days. And same with the meat. I think I'm going to separate it into 5 equal portions. And if I want a little piece extra, then I will. But otherwise, we're going to stick with that. So I decided to use a 1/3 measuring cup to separate the peas and carrots. Why 1/3? I don't know. Just sounded right. As it turns out, it was darn near right. I got an extra serving, a 6th bowl, just in case I need it for something extra or whatever. I put each of those in a Ziploc baggie and I stuck it back in the peas and carrot bag and put it back in the freezer. Then on to the meat. I cut it up as equally as I could. I actually figured out what size I wanted to use. I used a straw and we went from there. I wasn't too concerned about the seasoning that was on it, but I did scrape it up. I took 3 of the portions of meat, wrapped them individually in some parchment paper, and then stuck those in a Ziploc baggie and put those in the refrigerator. We're going to use 2 pieces today because we're going to start on tomorrow's tonight, which will make future Tina a very happy girl. And I'm just scraping up what's left on the mat to put in the crock pot. The rest is in the wrapper. I've already got that scraped up. Okay, so I have Eric's single-serve crock pot. Boy, oh boy, is that coming in handy. I put a little bit of water in the bottom, and I'm going to add my 1/5 of a piece of meat to the crock pot. Then whatever I could scrape up off the wrapper is going in. And that's it, guys. That's going to sit on low until I decide to go to bed or it's done. For dinner day 1, we're going to address the meat last. I was going to do something different with the potato, but then I decided, I just want to oven roast it. So I got my trusty chop box out and started chopping them up into even-sized cubes. I then rinsed them off and patted them dry and put them in a bowl. So I'm going to pour some olive oil all over the potatoes, and then I'm just going to mix it around so that they get all wet so the seasonings will stick. We're going to do the same old on the spices. We're going to add some seasoned salt, onion powder, garlic powder, some Italian seasoning, and some paprika. Once we get that all on there, we're going to mix it all up. Initially, I thought I was going to cook it in the oven, but then changed my mind to the air fryer because I got a later start. So away they go. On to the apple. For this recipe, you can leave the skins on or take them off. Do whatever you'd like. I initially thought that I was going to use the whole apple. I ended up not doing that, but I digress. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut your apple. You're going to keep the core out. Then cut it into wedges. Thin wedges, not thick ones. That's all of it. And I kept a piece out. I put a little bit of lemon on it so it doesn't oxidize, and then wrapped it up in that saran wrap. Here we go again with it. I thought I was going to use it all and didn't. Initially, I thought I was going to use all of this onion or the majority of it. When I started peeling it, it was just an awful lot for the small amount of meat I had, so I decided to use less. So what you're going to do is just going to cut them into like little strips, chunks, squares, doesn't matter. I prefer them in strips though. As you can see, I thought I was going to use half of the onion at that point, but as I was putting it in the bowl, I realized that was still way too much onion, so I took some out. Finally, we're getting to the meat. Boy, oh boy, there was a lot of chopping involved in this first one. That's why future me is going to be happy tomorrow. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the meat and we're going to cut it down into strips. I ended up with 5 pieces. Off to the frying pan. So put some oil in the pan. Not as much as I did. I put too much in there. Get it good and hot because you're going to sear the meat. You want to drop it in and you're... I didn't get a great sear because I had too much oil in the pan. So I took it out and finished browning it up. Then set it to the side. So we're going to add a little bit of butter to the pan. Scrape up all those bits and pieces. Then we're going to add the apples and the onions to saute together. And even here, I pulled out a little bit more of the onion. So we're just going to saute them until they get nice and soft. And there you go. I turned the heat all the way down to low. I'm going to add the meat back to the pan. And now we're just going to add a couple of more things and we're coming down the home stretch. And those things are a little bit of brown sugar and some cinnamon. Everything's going to get mixed together. Just for now, I have it separate in the pan. And a little bit of salt to bring out the flavors. I'm going to add a little bit of salt to the meat because I didn't add anything at all yet. So the meat is done. I'm going to take that out of the pan. I'm going to add a little bit of water to the apples and onions so we get nice little gravy. You can add some cornstarch and do things like that, but we're going to have it just like it is. We're just going to stir it around and get up all those bits and pieces, and I'm going to meet you at the plate. So there's our roasted potatoes, our pork, and of course I made too many potatoes. I made the peas and carrots in the microwave with some butter, salt, and pepper. And now we're going to add the apples. And I'm going to meet you at the table. All right, here I am. I'm a mess. I'm over there cooking my dinner, the kids' dinner. I'm sweating. My hair's flopping everywhere. But I don't know if I'm going to do all sit-downs after each meal. But we're going to do this one today. So I'm just going to taste the pork chop just plain. Just regular piece of pork chop. Oh yeah. Plenty of seasoning on it. Then I'm going to take some apple and onion. That's my favorite. Well, one of my favorites. I can't tell what's apple and what's not. I got bad vision. Apple and onion. I feel like dancing. That's good. Try and take small bites so I have a chance to chew. These potatoes are delicious. Peas and carrots are just peas and carrots. I'm gonna drop some. Oh, they're good. They still have a little bit of snack left to them. I like them like that. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Or should I say winner, winner, pork dinner. There's one of the really big potatoes out of here. I'm going to use maybe a portion of the roll. And what's in here? But I really don't want it just regular pulled pork. It has a little bit of a spice on it. That seasoning I put in there, I tasted this last night. It's a little spicy, so I want to calm it down. So what I decided to do was make a barbecue sauce, but it's all made from pantry staples. Since we started the pulled pork yesterday, we're going to start with the sides today. So I have one very large potato. It's probably bigger than I need, but as I always say, if I'm eating it, my kids eat it. So I peeled and washed off my potato. I'm going to slice them down probably about maybe a ½ inch thick, like a McDonald's French fry or something like that. Then when I have my little wedges cut out, I'm just going to slice them straight down to make like shoestring French fries. To be honest, at first I thought, is one potato going to be enough? Oh, yes, it was. Yes, indeed, it was. The next step is crucial. You need to soak your potatoes in an ice bath. It helps with like the crispiness. It takes out a little bit of the starchiness. It really does something. I don't know the mechanics of it, but I know that it works. All right, let's take a look at what's going on in this crock pot. The meat was done last night and I shredded it up. I stuck it in the refrigerator, and then a couple hours ago, I stuck it back into the crock pot to reheat. So let's get started on that. All right, here we go. I am making way more than I need because Eric absolutely loves my homemade barbecue sauce, so I can't make it without making some for him. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it one way, and I'm going to tell you what the single serve amounts are. The spices in the cup are 2/3 teaspoon paprika, to a heavy half, a half a teaspoon of onion and garlic powder, and 1/4 teaspoon pepper. To the bowl, you're going to add 1/3 cup ketchup, 2 tablespoons brown sugar, 2 teaspoons Worcestershire sauce, I like a little extra, 1/4 teaspoon yellow mustard, and mix. Once we're done with the mixing, we're going to make a cornstarch slurry. We're going to add the water and the cornstarch, mix it all up, add it to the barbecue sauce, and then we're going to heat it. Why didn't I put it in the pot to begin with? I don't know. Now that we're all mixed up and in the pot, we're just going to let it simmer anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. You really just want it to get thick. Now, before we start these French fries, this is very important. Make sure you dry your fries the best you can. You do not want ice cold, wet French fries to go in hot oil. Just off camera, I have a foil-lined pan with some paper towels on it with a wire rack over it because we're going to half cook the French fries, take them out, and redrop them. Now, my oil isn't super hot and it will catch up, but I start slowly. I add a little bit of the French fry, let it heat, and this way it won't splatter. Well, maybe not as much. It'll still splatter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some fries in here, and I'm going to cook them halfway. I don't know if you could see it or not, but you see how they're becoming translucent? You see like it's a white line and then it's translucent? That's how, like this was completely translucent. It's gonna start turning a little bit brown, and that's when I'm gonna take it out. You see how it's bending now? That's what I want. I'm gonna take that out and I'm gonna put them to the side. Look how that thickened up nicely. So I'm just going to take out what I need out of this and leave the rest for Eric. That's the last of the fries. I'm going to take those out, and we're going to move over to back to the crock pot. So I drained all the liquid out of the pulled pork, and I took about 1/3 of a cup of barbecue sauce. I don't know why I chose that number. It just felt right for the amount of meat I had in the pot. And that's what it looks like with the barbecue sauce in it. I decided to skip the peas and carrots, but you can have them here if you wanted to. All right, we're going to go back to the fries. But before we do that, I took off a piece of my roll, I cut it in half, and I stuck it in the oven to toast because I want mine on a toasted bun. So we're going to re-drop the fries. Now this time when you take them out and put them on the wire rack, you're going to want to hit them with some salt immediately as they come out. This time when you re-drop your French fries, there'll be a lot of bubbles like there normally is, and they will slow down and you'll know you're getting to the end. They're almost done. You have to watch for the color that you like now. So this is how I like mine. I'm just going to finish up this last little bit and we're going to start plating up. There's my nice toasted buns. I think I'm going to do this as open face instead of a sandwich. The peas and carrots are just for show. They're still frozen. I'm not eating those. And now we're going to add the fries. I had them sitting on a paper towel. And there's my massive plate. And here I am with this massive, massive plate of food. Are you kidding me? All right. First things first, let's taste the fries. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Dip it in there. Oh my goodness, it's so good. I love homemade fries. I was gonna sit there and eat more. Hold on. I'm gonna take these off because they were just for show, so I can take a picture. And now I'm gonna try this with my homemade barbecue sauce. Now you can make it like a sandwich, but there was so much, I don't know. I'm just gonna eat an open face. Again, cheese would be good. That was not pretty. I had a fork the entire time. Did I use it? No. That is absolutely delicious. All right, here we go. For tomorrow, I'm going to need some breadcrumbs, so we're gonna make some. Out in front there, I have some parsley, some paprika, onion and garlic powder, Italian seasoning. I do have rosemary, but that's in the Italian, so I ended up not using that. Some basil, oregano, and seasoned salt. You really don't even need all of that. You can get away with some garlic powder, onion powder, and some Italian seasoning. First thing you're going to do is you're going to cut a couple of slices off. Now that we have those all sliced, you're going to get out your sheet pan, spray it down so that your toast doesn't burn. Then you're going to spray your bread. I'm using olive oil, but you could use vegetable oil, whatever you have. Then we're going to go through all of the seasonings that you have. The parsley, paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, Italian, basil, oregano, salt, and pepper. We're going to flip it over, and we're going to do the other side the same way. And then they'll look something like this. Put them in the oven. Keep a good eye on them. Let them toast up. You want them dry all the way through. And believe me, I didn't keep a close eye on mine because look what happened. Darn near burnt them. Once they cooled off, I stuck them in a Ziploc baggie and I just squashed it up with my fingers. You'll see those tomorrow. All right, it looks like a bit of a mess, but we're using everything. I have some potatoes left. I have quite a few left. I'm only going to use one, I think, because I'm going to make some mashed potatoes. We're going to use a slice or two of what's left of my bread. We're going to have peas and carrots. The apple and the onion are in there. And we're going to use a hunk of meat out of the pieces that we have. For this one, we're only going to need one potato, and it's really big anyway. And I've been making a lot of food on these last couple of videos, way more than I can eat, and probably one person can eat as well. But anyway, we're going to take the potato, we're just going to cube it up, and we're going to stick it in the pot of water and boil it. We're going to make mashed potatoes in a little bit. Okay, so for this one, we're going to use the onion and the apple. Now, I had no use for the apple, but I kept it. I paid for it. I want it. I'm going to use it, so we're going to throw it in at some point somewhere. What we're going to do after that is we're going to start dicing up or slicing up the onion into strips like we did yesterday. Initially, I thought that I was going to use all of the onion, but once I started separating it, it made a lot more onion than I needed, so I held it off for a different recipe. I'm going to take the meat and wash it off before I decide how I'm going to cut it up, because I want to go with a different flavor. And the seasoning on this pork loin was kind of prominent. So I rinsed it off. I cut the meat down into equal portions. I had a little extra piece from when I was cutting it initially. And this is what it looked like when I was done cutting it. I'm going to season the first side here and then the other side in the frying pan. We're going to add some seasoned salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. So you're going to take some butter. I'm saying that in air quotes because everybody knows we don't use butter, or oil or something. You're going to start cooking your onions. You want to cook them until they're soft, not all the way done. My preference is for them to have just a little bit of bite to them. Once those are done, we're going to take them out and set them to the side. Get your chops in the pan so you can get a nice sear on one side. And while that's happening, you're going to season the other side. Now, while I was seasoning, I got a call from Chop for Aiden, so mine almost went a little bit too long. So since I let mine go so far, I am literally only going to leave it in the pan for maybe a minute, then take it out and set it to the side. To make the gravy, I took 1/4 teaspoon of beef bouillon and 1/4 teaspoon of chicken bouillon. Try not to make it just chicken and not all the way beef either. You're going to add a little bit more butter back to the pan. We're going to stir that around so we can start making our gravy. We're also going to add some flour. Not a lot. I mean, we're only making a little bit. Once you cook the flour taste out of it, it's going to look brown from all the bits and pieces in there. I'm going to start slowly adding some water and whisking it till it gets to the consistency that I like. Now that we're here, I'm going to add the chicken and beef bouillon, and then I'm going to let that simmer for a little bit. I'm also going to add some pepper, onion powder, and some garlic powder. And one more big whisking. I added a touch more water. I thought that my gravy was a little bit too thick. But once I got that all mixed in, I brought back the onions and let them simmer a little bit in that gravy. Here's where you're going to add your meat back to the pan. The pork chops, well, what we're calling pork chops, and any juices. And we're going to let them simmer while we make the mashed potatoes. All right, so my potatoes are going to be very, very basic. The only thing I'm going to add is some salt and pepper. And because we don't traditionally use milk in our mashed potatoes because of Eric, I retain some of the starchy water to replace that. Now, to replace what we're not getting because we don't have the milk, I put extra butter in there. It gives you the fat that you're missing, and it'll give you the extra creaminess that you're going to want. Before I add any of the starchy water, I always blend it up first, because a lot of times I put enough butter in there that I don't even need the starchy water. And as it turns out, in this case, I didn't need it again. Onto the garlic bread. I took some butter, air quotes, some garlic, and of course, some garlic powder. And mix that all up. I put a couple of slices of the French bread in the oven to toast first. Coming down the home stretch here, guys. Here's what my toast looked like. So now we're just gonna slather it on there. Just put as much or as little as you like on it. Then just put it back in the oven to let it melt in. And she's done. Time to start plating up. That one giant potato made a lot of mashed potatoes. More than I could put on this plate. I added my peas and carrots that I cooked in the microwave with butter, salt, and pepper. Then all of the chops, followed by some onions. Don't forget about those apples. I'm going to slice them up and put them on my plate for a side. And it's time for the gravy on the chops, on the potatoes. We are having smothered chops today. And there's my plate. Guys, really? Oh, I'm scared to hold it up. Oh, I'm scared. Look at that. Look at that. All right. Let's go for it. Let's see how yummy this is. I got a piece of pork chop, some of the gravy. I'll dip it in the gravy right there. There we go. That is good. That is good. Let's just try some of the mashed potatoes without any of the gravy. That's good. With the gravy. It's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but I prefer my potatoes a little more naked, I guess. I got some peas and carrots right here. They're just peas and carrots. You don't need to see me eat them, but I will. Oh, it's hot. Just some salt, pepper, and butter. Perfect. And then my garlic bread. It's sitting for a minute, so I don't know if it got soggy or hard. I know, it's still good. Ready? This is a comfort meal. Struggle who? Struggle where? Not in this house. For this one, we're going to start with the side. We're going to make a baked potato. I took that baked potato and I scrubbed it with an inch of its life. I usually dry off the potato first. Then I pour whatever oil on it that I'm using all over it and just roll it around. I always have a glove on because then it's just easier to wash my hands afterwards. After I put the oil on, then I poke the holes. I find that sometimes if you put the oil on first, it clogs up the holes. I don't know. Then I roll it around in a good hearty salt, like sea salt or kosher salt. I happen to have mine in a bag because I was using it for something else a different day. I'm not too concerned about how much salt is on there because it falls off while it's cooking or when I start handling it. So for now, I just don't worry about it. But once it's done, I put that in the oven on 425 until a fork goes in and it's nice and tender. All right, I have 2 pieces of meat left. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little sliver off of each of them and I'm gonna reserve it for the bonus meal if I decide to make it. All right, that's what I took off, just 3 little pieces. This one was thinner than the other one, but. Now that we've saved some meat for the bonus meal, we're gonna slice this down just like we did the other ones. Only this time, I decided to keep one of them almost whole. You'll see what I mean. And now we're gonna pat dry our pork chops so that we can bread them. Here are the breadcrumbs we made yesterday before we started cooking. I just mushed them all up with my fingers and a rolling pin. Didn't take very much. Since I don't have an egg, it wasn't in the budget, what I'm gonna use is some mayonnaise. It's been used over and over again. All we're gonna do is we're gonna slather that mayonnaise down onto that pork chop. And we're just gonna repeat the seasonings we use all the time. Some garlic powder, some onion powder, some pepper, and seasoned salt. I'm gonna give those breadcrumbs one last good smushing, and then I'm gonna pour it out on the cutting mat so that I can just flip over the pork chop into it, just like this. While it's face down in the breadcrumbs, I'm going to add a little bit more mayonnaise. I'm not going to season this side because there's seasoning in the breadcrumbs and there's seasoning on the other side, and those chops just aren't that thick. And then I'm just going to press it down to get them to stick to the chop. And this is what they look like when I was done. Then it's off to the frying pan we go. In my tiny frying pan, I put a little bit of vegetable spray because I don't want too much liquid in there because I don't want the breadcrumbs to come off, but I also don't want it to stick. And I want it good and hot so you can brown the breadcrumbs.
You're going to have to use your judgment here, guys, because I don't know how thick you would cut yours, but mine only took a few minutes. I browned them up on one side, flipped them over, browned them up on the other, and they were done. My potato is piping hot. I'm going to use these tongs to cut it open. I couldn't think of anything else. I'm just going to cut a straight line down the middle and then little Y's at the end so I can mush it together and let the potato come up. And we're just going to finish plating it up. We're going to put the chops on there, and I cook the peas and carrots the same way I've been doing it through all the other ones. And there's my plate.
All right, here we go. I already cut a piece off. That's good. That's good. And baked potatoes, my potatoes are always delicious. I didn't add any salt to that. I forgot there's salt on the skin. Oh. Buttery and good. Peas and carrots are peas and carrots, so. That's good. And my homemade breadcrumbs, spot on.
For this meal, I'm going to need a couple of potatoes, some peas and carrots, and almost all of my broccoli. I'm going to save some for the bonus meal. We're also going to need our meat, but I'm going to take that out later. It's in the refrigerator for now. I'm going to use my chalk box because I want them to be uniform in size so they won't cook at different times. So I'm going to cut them into about 1 inch thick circles. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to put them in my chop box and pow, we have cubes. Once I was done with that, I picked out all of the pieces that were about the same size. I rinsed them and put them in another bowl, and then I put the other little pieces to the side. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. Ultimately, I ended up using them.
All right, since I don't like my broccoli tough, I'm going to put these in a little bit of water and steam them and have them ready for when I want to add them to the dish. So I have my broccoli, minus a little bit I pulled out for the bonus.
So here goes our last piece of meat. This one I'm not going to rinse. I'm just going to scrape it off. I do want some of the flavoring left behind. So we're just going to take this hunk of meat, minus the piece I cut off for the bonus meal, and we're going to cut it up into like little tiny chunks, something like this. Maybe about the size you'd find in your pork fried rice or a little bit bigger than that. Before we move over to the frying pan, I'm going to take the broccoli out and chop it all up. I did that because I don't like my broccoli like real chewy. I like it a little bit more tender than most. So I got a little oil in the pan, nice and hot, and I dried off my potatoes best I could so that they didn't splatter. I was trying to decide if I wanted to put those little pieces in there, and I figured, what the heck, toss them in. My heat is set at medium-high because I want to get a real good sear on the potatoes. Once we get the potatoes good and brown, we're going to lower the heat. I turned mine down to a 2 on my gas range. What we're going to do after that is add some water. But be really careful because there's oil in that pan and you don't want it to splatter. So anyway, add enough water to just barely cover the potatoes. Now that we have it to a simmer, we're going to cover it and let it cook about 3 to 5 minutes. After that, you're going to remove the lid. The potatoes should be fork tender, but not mashed potatoes. There might be a little bit of water left in the pan. We're just going to let that evaporate off. Here's where you're going to add your raw meat to the pan. We still have some cooking to do, so don't worry, you won't get sick. All right, we're going to break out the same old seasonings. We're going to add some garlic powder, a good amount, some onion powder, also a good amount, and some pepper. And give that about a minute or 2 to start cooking. Oh my goodness, I forgot to add the onions. Add them earlier in the pan. Don't do like I do. I'm just going to cut it up and throw it in real quick. You don't have to do this part. I took out my meat and set it to the side for just a minute. I didn't want it to get tough, but you can leave it in the pan. Once that's done, I'm going to add the peas and carrots to the pan. I had more peas and carrots than this, But Aiden asked me if he can eat the peas and carrots. I thought he was talking about what was on my plate, and he ate one of the bags, but it was all okay in the end. So moving forward, we're just going to saute the peas and carrots in the pan until they're not frozen anymore. I added just a touch of water in the pan to help them along. So now we're going to add my already cooked broccoli. You could add the raw broccoli here. Like I said, I like mine a little bit more tender than most people do. Now we're just going to mix that all through. If you haven't figured out what we're making by now, we're making a stir fry, except for we're not using rice, we're using potatoes. Oh, and by the way, there's enough for 2 in that pan. And now we're going to add the meat back to the pan if you took it out. If not, skip that step. And we're just going to combine everything together. Don't mix it, fold it in. It'll mix better that way. It won't like fall apart and look all crumbly. All right, so we're going to make a little stir fry sauce. Now, I don't want the food to taste just like the sauce, so I'm going to go a little bit light on it. I'm going to add about 1.5 tablespoons. I think I ended up adding 2 tablespoons though, if I'm not mistaken. And another 1.5 tablespoons of soy. Then I'm just going to add a little bit of water to help things move along. And again with the fold, mix it in very gently. I'm just going to add some seasoned salt right across the top. Potatoes can take a lot of salt. And we are done. Time to plate it up. I'm going to pile all of it onto this plate so you guys can see visually how much food was really in that giant pot. And there's my plate. I'm going to meet you at the table.
Again, look at this massive plate. I'm not eating all that. That's enough for 2. I'm telling you, all of these meals, with the exception of the meat portions, probably everything could have fed 2. And maybe not, because my kids were chowing down on mine. So, holy moly. Aiden's right there, and Eric's right at the stairway. They're like, I want what you don't finish. Well, that's nearly the whole plate, because it's a lot of food. All right. I mean, look, this is a standard size plate, and I can fill this thing this high all the way to the brim. Hold on a minute. I hear my phone ringing or something going on upstairs. Hold on. I'm sorry. I usually silence my phone, but my daughter's over at the hospital, so I had to answer it. All right. Wasn't her, though. Telemarketer. All right. So let me get some of the broccoli. You know, like I always say, get all of the things on my plate. I should get the kids' opinions on everything since they've tried everything I've had. They've had their mouth on everything. Do I have potato? Sorry. All right. That is super, super duper hot. So I'm not burning my mouth. But potato, it's kind of like getting grits thrown on you or something. All right. You ready, Eric? Yeah, he's ready. Let's go. Oh, that is so good. Mmm. Mmm. That is delicious. Absolutely delicious. Oh boy. I don't know which one's going to be my favorite. I'll have to put it up when I edit it, when I go back over it and remember everything I've eaten over this past week. I'll let you know what my favorites were, if I even have one. All right, so there you have it. All right, I had 2 ideas for a bonus meal. One was a soup. I don't feel like having soup. I feel like having this. I made this potato the same way I did my other baked potato, olive oil, poked holes, rolled it in salt. All right, my bonus meal potato is done. Besides the potato that's in the oven cooking, I saved some of the broccoli. It's just sitting in some water, some peas and carrots, and then, of course, a couple of pieces of meat I shaved off.
All righty, let's move right along. I'm going to take my 3 little pieces of meat that I rationed out yesterday, We're just going to brown it up in the pan. Do you remember that barbecue sauce I made on day 2, I think? Eric ate almost all of it. This is all that's left. So after browning it for about a minute or 2, we're going to flip it over. It doesn't take that long, maybe another minute or 2. And then we're going to add just the tiniest a bit of the barbecue sauce. We're just going to let that sit in the frying pan and thicken up a little bit. It's already done. While the potato is still hot, I'm going to cut a line down the middle and then put like the little Y's at the end so I can hollow out the potato. So I got my little green bowl out to put the potato in. That potato was so hot, I had to do it off camera. I was burning the tips of my fingers off. So it's going to look something like this. You still want to have some structural integrity to your potato, but you don't want a bunch of it in there. Just take it all out so it can still stand up. Then you're just going to smash up the potato that's in there. Once it's all mushed up, I added a little bit of butter so it could make it, I don't know, looser, I guess. Time to start with the add-ins. Now, I've already warmed the broccoli and the peas and carrots, but we still have to season the potato. So I snipped the broccoli up with a pair of scissors. I left a couple of pieces out just for the pretty, I guess, on the top. We're going to start with the peas and carrots. I cooked them in a little bit of butter, salt, and pepper. We're going to mix that into the mashed potato. And then we're going to go in with the rest of the broccoli. While I was mixing this together, I was sure wishing I had some cheese. It would be good to go in right about now. I'm going to add some pepper. I'm not adding salt because there's a lot of it on the skin, but I will add the rest of the butter that was on the spoon because I wanted a little bit more moisture in the potato. I don't know why I was holding some of the vegetables to the side over there, so I just tossed them in and mixed it up. I took a tiny taste of the filling. It needed something. It needed some salt, a little bit more butter, and then I added a pinch more of the pepper. Once I got everything all mixed through, it had time to cool down, so I just chucked it in the microwave for a minute to reheat it before I put it back in the potato. Not super hot because it's going back in the oven. Okay, now that it's all hot, we're going to start stuffing it back in the potato. Make sure you get down to all the cavities, shove it down in there really well. You'll have more than enough. It'll overfill that potato. Once you're done filling it, it should look something like this, but we're not done yet. We still have more to add. Remember that meat? Yeah, I diced that all up in the pan like little strips and let it sit there in that barbecue sauce while I was making this potato. And we're just going to pile it on top. Now that we're done adding the meat, I'm going to add the pieces of broccoli that I held out just for the pretty. It's adding nothing extra other than it's more in there. Now that we got everything all assembled, we're going to put it back on the wire rack. Ask me why I took it off the wire rack. I don't know. I have no idea. I should have done it right there. I set my oven to broil because all we really need is for it to crisp up.
Oh, this is done. Woo woo! Look at that. That is huge, that potato.
And there's my plate.
If you get any benefit at all from my content, you can help me out by clicking like, share, commenting, and definitely hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video.
All right, I'm not going to go over to the table for this one, so let's just dive in and see what's going on inside here. I'm going to cut it in half so we can get a cross section. Again, I'm likely not going to eat all this. The kids will probably help me with it. They always do. Let's see if I could... Yikes. Woo! Let me show you the inside. Look down in there. All right, let me taste it. All right, try to get all of the things. I got some of the skin on there, some of the potato, and the meat. That's super, super, super hot. All right, let me taste it. Oh my goodness, that is so good. Oh my goodness. That's good. That's good. That's all I can say. All right. Well, there you have it. That is your 5 days and a bonus. I probably could have threw a soup in there, but I just didn't feel like making it. So all of the meals were great. There was more than enough for the average size eater. If it wasn't for the kids, I would have had a ton of leftovers, to be honest. So there you have it. I hope you enjoy what I've done with this last almost an entire week of me doing dinners. And I hope it's not too long, but if it is what it is. So there you have it. I hope you try it. I hope you like it. Leave me a comment. Either way. See you later. Bye.